You're listening to Nonpartisan Hacks, the podcast where we talk about good government from the local level on up. I'm Joel Grenz, a councillor in the city of Parksville.
And I'm Sean Wood, also a councillor for the city of Parksville, as well as 2026 mayoral candidate. Today we're talking about something that keeps us both busy, public engagement.
Public hearings, emails at all hours, Facebook groups that never sleep, delegations at council meetings. It's all part of the job, and here's the thing. Everyone agrees engagement matters, but what is it actually supposed to do?
Democracy is not a spectator sport, and when people actually show up, whether that's in person, online, or in our inboxes, things can get interesting pretty fast. But there's often a massive gap between what the public expects from engagement and what councils can and maybe should deliver.
So today we're digging into what public engagement actually looks like from the council side of the table, what it's for, what works, what doesn't, and why sometimes the loudest voice in the room isn't necessarily the most representative.
Quick disclaimer, the views we're sharing are our own, and we're not speaking on behalf of the city of Parksville or any other body, but we are speaking from 3 years of lived experience dealing with public engagement in all of its forms.
And if you've ever been to a public hearing, sent an email to council, or posted in a local Facebook group wondering if anyone's actually listening, this one's for you. And I don't know actually how many people send emails to council. It seems to be not that many in my experience. Now, having done this 3 years, most people don't pay that much attention to local government, which is, we think, a little unfortunate. We want people to be engaged with their local community as much as possible, especially in a positive way.
You know, part of that comes down to, and we didn't run the stats on this, Joel Grenz, but I'll bet if we looked at engagement in elections, federal and provincial probably beat out local government for percentage of engagement.
I would say so.
For myself, I had definitely voted in a lot of federal and provincial elections before I started voting in local government elections, and that's probably the same for a lot of people. Local government is actually pretty boring and a lot less glamorous, I guess we could say, than provincial and federal governments.
Yeah, I think most people are probably more informed and ready to vote in a U.S. federal election than they are in a Canadian municipal election, unfortunately.
Yeah, and we saw that with the most recent provincial election. People think they're voting for Pierre Poilievre, but they're actually voting for the BC Conservative leader or the BC Conservative Party. So while there's a bunch of confusion out there, people are definitely more engaged with the higher levels of government than the level of government that's dealing with, sewer and roads and water.
All very exciting stuff. So what is public engagement actually for? Maybe we'll kind of dig into the high level idea here. Why would public engagement be something that maybe local council would seek? How do we think this engagement should actually be done, and what is it for?
What public engagement is for, Joel Grenz, obviously when you're elected to any order of government, you're supposed to represent the constituents of that area. And without knowing what the public is thinking or feeling or what's affecting them, then it's pretty difficult to make good decisions at the table. So it's always good to hear from the public that really are paying the bills for whatever order of government it is, and in our case, local government.
Yeah, and I think it's important to distinguish between what kind of democracy we are. We are a representative democracy, which means that we elect someone to represent our community, to speak on our behalf, as opposed to a direct democracy where every major question would go to referendum or some way of everyone cast their ballot on the issue specifically. Instead, we send someone to the table or to Parliament or to the legislature or whatever the body may be to make decisions on behalf of the community as our representative.
I think the idea of a representative democracy is that you're cutting out some of the cost and some of the bureaucracy, actually, of having a referendum on every small question. So every 4 years in local government, we are elected to make decisions on a wide variety of topics. And occasionally we will have a referendum or a public hearing where there is a bit more direct engagement. But for the most part, the public is like, look, you guys are going to deal with hundreds of things over the next 4 years. These are the people who we're voting in to address and pay attention to and make good decisions with all of these topics. And we don't really have the time or the money to pay for referendums and be engaged on every little thing. So please do a good job.
Yeah, there's all kinds of nuance and information that I, as Jane Public, may not be interested in or privy to or have an understanding of. Having been in local government now for over 3 years, definitely there's a lot of complexity to everything that we deal with and a lot of layers, a lot of reading, a lot of background information. And I feel like a lot of what I do is just playing detective around issues to really understand what's going on behind the scenes or why things are the way they are in order to make a better decision and hopefully move in the right direction with the decisions that I make at the table. Public engagement is part of that. Not only do I get the information from all the reading and all the work that we do at the table, but also I need the information from the community. And so maybe we'll jump into some of the different ways we get that information. We've listed some already, but let's get in a little bit more specifically on public hearings. What is a public hearing? How does it come about? Why do we do it? And what do we expect to get out of it as a member of council?
Sure. Just to comment on what you mentioned, Joel, that Jane Jane can also be a guy's name. It was a character in the movie Serenity, or the TV series Serenity. So
I picked a good gender neutral term.
That's right, you did.
Name.
Yes, yeah. I just wanted to circle back to that. Okay, public hearings. Yeah, we actually just had one in the city of Parksville, Joel Grenz.
We did. It was pretty full.
And so we had a pretty full gallery, and it was on a variance for a grocery store unit that they wanted to be a bit larger to handle a bit of a larger grocery store. And so the public was notified well in advance, and the gallery was relatively full. But I think we only had 9 people speak at the microphone, if my math was correct when my notes were.
Yeah, that was a kind of an unusual one in that there was a very full house, standing room only, and but only actually a handful of the people that were there wanted to speak to the thing. I think a lot of people are there just to hear more about the actual grocery store topic, which I guess maybe is a little way to pivot into my kind of complaint about public hearings, is that often public hearings are about a very specific niche item. So in this case, it was about the permitted square footage of that grocery store, not whether there would be a grocery store or not. The proponent already stated that they wanted to make a grocery store, and they certainly could within the current zoning. It's just they wanted to have the square footage calculation to be a bit different than what it would have been under the zoning, and needed a variance for that. And so that also required there to be a public hearing. And folks who live near that grocery store potential site or would potentially shop there were interested in the idea of maybe a grocery store being there, and came hoping to hear, I think, more about that. But unfortunately, in a public hearing is for us as council to hear the public, not for the public to hear from us as council. Every other meeting they can do that, but at a public hearing, we don't actually say anything. We just listen, which is very important. But one of the potential downsides I see about that is where someone may get up to a microphone and say something that is completely untrue and has no basis in fact. In fact, they can say whatever they want on the microphone. Technically, they're supposed to speak to the actual variance and how it would affect their property. But people can get up and say all kinds of things that aren't true at all, and no one can correct them really, except for some other person standing up from the audience. So if someone says, oh, this grocery store is going to have a big water slide on it, and I hate water slides, and we shouldn't have a water slide at a grocery store, everyone in the audience would be like, whoa, there's a grocery store with a water slide coming? And no one on council really would normally be like, yeah, actually, that's not true. There's no water slide. So this is where I don't know how good public hearings in that format are at actually informing the public. It's more about us hearing from the public.
And to your point, Joel, I believe there are some councils who will bring the matter into the same meeting later on in the same meeting and deal with it. One of the reasons I believe we do not do that is because we as council, there's a bit of a cutoff. After the public hearing is over, we do not receive any more information about that topic. And then we have time to deliberate, get things kind of straight in our own heads as to what we heard. And we don't deal with that topic until the next meeting or the meeting following. And that's the reason why we don't deal with it in that evening. And I think the public hearing that we saw on Monday was a bit of an outlier, because in our 3 years, Joel Grenz, I think we've seen public hearings on small things like, an overheight fence or a variance on setback for a fence or something, and we do have a public hearing where the chair calls for comments from the gallery, calling once, calling twice, calling 3 times, and no one is there.
The crickets show up for those ones.
The crickets show up, and so that's one kind that we've seen. And the other major kind is when it's a very divisive topic or a very large topic, and we see a full gallery, and there's almost not enough time at night or in the afternoon to listen to all of the wide variety of opinions, some in favor, some against, and some public hearings are mostly in favor or mostly against. On Monday, we had one where there was only 9 people who went up to the microphone with a full gallery. So I think that was actually an outlier of a public meeting we had on Monday.
Yeah, it was a fun one. It was a bit of an unusual one. And maybe to give a little bit more context on how the public hearing fits into the entire process of making a decision, is every major decision would have more than one step to it. So I think people need to understand that there will be first reading, second reading, third reading, maybe adoption. There are multiple steps along the way, and inserted in between some of those steps is the public hearing in some cases. So especially where required by law. And what we often do on the public engagement front in the city of Parksville is we insert another step, which is an open house. And the open house would be something that the proponent, so whoever is wanting to do whatever, whether it's a grocery store, in this case, they wanted to have a larger grocery store, they actually held an open house. So they rented a room and had drawings and information and people there to answer questions about it. And they held this and invited the public to it, sent out notices, put notice in the newspaper so people can hear about it before we even get to the point of moving through the steps on this particular project. So that's a great way for public engagement. I really love that one myself because it's really kind of puts it on the proponent to get the public interested and on side and understanding what the proposal is before we really have to spend a lot of our time discussing it and going through it at the council table.
Yeah, for sure. What else can we talk about public hearings? It's just one of the ways where people can have a bit more direct influence. And some people are scared of a microphone, and we really appreciate when people get up to the microphone and they start off with, I'm not good at public speaking, or I'm scared of a microphone. And then other people, it feels like they're up there for the microphone and it's their moment to shine, and they love it up there. And so,
which one are you, Sean?
The microphone is just a tool, and as part of our jobs, Joel Grands, we can't be scared of microphones. But it's the chair's job to kind of manage time at a public hearing. You can't go on forever. I think 2 minutes is what we had on Monday night per speaker, and you can speak 3 times. An intimidating
timer that beeps when your time runs out.
And that's all part of just running a good meeting and making sure that you're running the business of the city in a dependable, fair way. While we're on public hearing, we should probably speak to that the chair does their best to not have clapping, not have cheering or booing. And the reason is because if you're on the other side of an issue and say the majority of people in the gallery are clapping, but you're on the other side of that issue, it's really tough to get up there if you feel like the majority of the room is in favor of the opposite side. And we want everybody to have the opportunity, regardless of what side of an issue you're on, to feel welcome to come up and voice your opinion. And so clapping, cheering, booing, any sort of that support or intimidation is not welcome at a public hearing, because we need to hear everybody have a fair chance at that microphone. And so that is how a chair is supposed to run the public hearing. It's not because council doesn't support or isn't opposed to a certain side of a topic. It's because we want everyone to feel welcome to come up to the microphone. And that's why it is not a town hall. It is a very calm, business-like meeting. And we need everybody to respect that for everybody's opinion to be heard at the microphone.
Leave those tomatoes at home, folks.
There's definitely no fruit throwing, for sure. Thankfully, we haven't seen that yet.
Yeah, they can get pretty heated, though, for sure. A lot of emotions can come up, and the idea is to try to minimize that and not have it be like a game show or something where everyone's cheering. Just an opportunity for the public to voice their opinion to council so that we can understand where the public is on the issue. I think maybe we can get on how does that public hearing come about, because sometimes we hear from people like, oh, the council doesn't actually want to hear the public. They may time the meeting, so it's hard for the public to come to the meeting and participate and give their voice to council. Anything on that there, Sean?
You're never going to be able to schedule a meeting that everybody can go to. There are people who work graveyard shifts, and and they would probably want a meeting at 8 or 9 in the morning before they go to bed at noon or 1. You're never going to have a time that works for everybody. Our council has decided to start our meetings on Mondays, typically at 1 in the afternoon. And for retired folks, that does allow them to get out to our meetings. And we do have one of the oldest populations in Canada here in Courtney Alberni riding in Parksville, Qualicum Beach. And so that does work for a wide variety. You're never going to be able to accommodate everybody in person at a meeting, but we do take input on those public hearings aside from the microphone. Joel Grenz, what other ways do we get input on a specific topic like that?
Even if you want to speak to a public hearing and you can't make it to that actual date and time, you can still watch it, in our case, on YouTube. And that's what a lot of the councils will do, is they'll have every meeting and public hearing is broadcast on some video platform. But you can also reach out to council. And I like to tell folks, really, anytime on any issue related to what we're doing in the city of Parksville, I want to hear from you. And so there are other ways to do that other than at a public hearing. And some of those ways are actually probably better than a public hearing in terms of getting your point across. One of those would be emails. We get a fair bit of email and people voice their opinion on topics that are either before council or any other topic that pops up as they go about their day.
I actually appreciate people who take time to email. I think Canada Post has seen maybe a 90% drop in the last 20 years on written letters, and that probably is reflected as well in government as well. So we don't get very many written comments. Maybe we've had 2 or 3 written, handwritten letters.
Yeah, we have gotten a few handwritten. Those are exciting.
When you do get one of those, if you really want to stand out, take your time and write a letter, but on paper with a pen, mail it. But
I have terrible penmanship. But the one we got recently had excellent penmanship. Very impressive.
Emails are a really great way because we'll get to them when we check our email. I try to reply to as many as I can, saying thank you for sharing your support or sharing your opinion on things. If you're going to email council, you can email all of us, council@parksville.ca, which also includes admin staff. But if you email us each separately, sometimes that might work a little bit better. And you can say, hey, Joel, I've been following your decisions on council. I really appreciate what you said on this topic. I was wondering about this variance. Here's kind of my opinion. And you've kind of already reeled Joel in a little bit by doing a little bit of homework and showing that you're paying attention. And you've already got Joel's attention with that. You don't start off with, hey, Joel Grenz, I think you're a jerk. And here's my opinion on something.
You got my attention now.
You definitely have his attention. But if you keep things as respectful as possible, your advocacy will probably go a little further in email. And we see all kinds of email in our inboxes.
I guess Sean's been reading his Dale Carnegie, is that How to Win Friends and Influence People? But yeah, it does apply. I think people forget that the people that are occupying these positions of council and whatever are just people in your neighborhood who decided to put their name forward and want to do the best job they can to represent the public. And that's where we do want to hear from folks. But if you want to speak in a more professional and kind way, that certainly goes a long way. The whole, honey attracts, what is it?
I'm the phrase guy. It's something about ants and honey. We're just going to leave that one though. Joel, we have a note here about identical form emails. And so on some topics, and when I ran federally, I would get these so much. Yeah. Where there's a form online and people fill out their name, Sean Wood, blah, 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 oil tanker ban or wild salmon or whatever it might be. And then they click send. As a federal candidate, I would get hundreds of emails that are the exact same email and they're just from a different person. Now, at the local government level, especially on public hearings, staff do count how many submissions we get. But really, when you send a form email, really you're just adding a kind of a tick, a number to the number that's being compiled on an issue. And you're not really, you didn't spend the time to reach out personally. And so it doesn't land the same as when you write a personal email. And so I often will tell people, even if it's whatever topic, try not to send form emails. You can still maybe steal a paragraph from the form email they're recommending, a certain subject is recommending you send, but make it as personal as possible because the chances are you will get more traction on the subject that you want to get traction on if you spend a little bit of time and we can read that you spent a little bit of extra time on there. It lands a bit better.
Yeah, because we actually spend time on the reply. If there's someone who wrote something to me that is along the lines of what you're describing, Sean, where it's specific to me or it's from the heart, not some form thing, then the response that I'm going to give you is going to be more specific as well. And I also try to answer as many emails as I can. It's hard to keep up for sure. There's a lot of email that comes in from various places, and it's definitely hard to keep up with all that email. But yeah, we do read it all, and even if we don't reply, we do take it into account in our decision making, and do appreciate hearing from folks on email.
And I can try to give us another segue into our next topic here, Joel, as well. But this level of government at local government, while it is boring and we deal with sewer and we deal with water and we deal with roads, when you email us, you are getting the email to the very person who's been elected, and usually you will get an email back from the very person who is elected. I think that's even true with the larger city centers like Vancouver and Victoria. When you're emailing provincial or federal elected officials, they will often have staff who handle it. And so we are, like I say, the front lines. Like we say, Joel Grenz, we're the front lines, and you're dealing with the person themselves. We do not have staff. And so that is one of the special things about local government is you're dealing with the person themselves. And I think we should all be thankful that that is how local government is, and ideally that's how provincial and federal government is as well. But they just have too many ways of correspondence, and they also are very, very busy people. Not that we are not busy, but be thankful that you're getting the right person, the very person, and they'll reply to you.
We just talked about email and how that's an effective way. Maybe talk about some of the less effective ways. Now's our talk about Facebook groups.
Well, we also have, we have Facebook, social media, and coffee chats in our little agenda.
Well, coffee chats is a good one, I think. But
coffee chats is exceptionally good.
Yeah.
Let's.
We're sticking on the good ones. Okay.
Let's talk about that before we get down into social media. Both Joel Grenz and I are not scared to meet anyone for a coffee, and it is a really great way to have honest conversations with people and actually build relationships with us, or us building relationships with constituents. People are respectful in person, much more so than we see online. Many people don't want to meet for a coffee for whatever reason, but many people do. And Joel and I will both, and most of council probably will make time for you. So if you really want to gain some traction on a certain topic, feel free to reach out and ask for a coffee. And I think most mayor and council will meet you for one. Okay, now let's get to Facebook and social media. Joel Grenz, are most people super respectful on social media, Joel Grenz?
Oh yeah, for sure. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. This is where all the friendly voices come out, and extra, careful about how they say things.
Mm-hmm. Especially the anonymous posts and people who have pseudonyms that they use to post.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I have like 20 Facebook accounts that I can use to.
I knew it. I knew it.
I actually don't. But in our area, there was someone who got into big trouble because he wrote under a pseudonym to the local letter to the editor section. Warren Patenko, you remember the pseudonym, and that was the source of some controversy because he was writing under someone else's name, even though he was the elected official he was writing about. This happens probably all the time now on Facebook, where what was a big controversy with these letters to the editor. Today, every post on Facebook could be from someone who is not the person they say they are.
If I could give a weighting to each of the ways to correspond with your elected officials, ranting on social media is probably weighted the least because it's the lowest effort, lowest bar to vent your frustration. And I think most mayor and council here in Parksville, we do read Facebook. We just don't engage with every comment because we'd probably never get anything done if we tried to do that. For me, it comes back to respectful engagement. If you're trolling or kind of raging on social media, it makes me wonder, how much kind of community engagement do you actually do, or are you kind of in a dark room with a screen and you're just typing away so that you feel better, that you let someone know, or do you really want to get some traction on a certain topic, and have you reached out with email or a phone call or a coffee?
Yeah, Facebook seems to be a great place to vent and maybe make yourself feel important. The goal is to be involved in the community and not think that Facebook is the equivalent of being involved in the community. Just because you're posting in a group that's, called city name rants and raves or whatever, doesn't mean that you are actually involved. And, we're human beings who benefit from interacting in person, ideally using the maximum number of our senses as possible. Maybe don't taste your friends, but it's better to see them in person and be in the same space physically as they are, as opposed to on Facebook, which is not a way to get that human connection that we all need. And so get involved in the community, and then you'll understand more about how things go on, hopefully be a little less frustrated, hopefully feel like you've got a role to play in making the community a better place, instead of just posting your thoughts on Facebook, which maybe makes you feel smart for a few minutes or get some dopamine when someone clicks like on your comment. But I encourage folks to get involved beyond that.
And positivity is, it's not always the easiest thing to do, but positivity is a key to public engagement. It's a key to building relationships with people. You can imagine at any a level of government, and local government is included in that it's very easy to be negative and see all the problems. And we do see problems, of course, but at the same time, I think part of being elected is to be as positive as possible. And hopefully that positivity affects the community. And when we see positivity out in the community, we love to see that as well. And negativity really doesn't really help anyone at all. If you see a problem, try to be part of the solution. And just constant negativity or raging is really not a net positive on any of the subjects.
For anybody, including yourself.
Yeah.
I do occasionally browse through comments because I do want to see what people are thinking about things, and it does also inform my decision making. But I do add a discount factor to anything on Facebook, recognizing that the people posting content may not actually be who they say they are. They may not actually be in our community any longer, or maybe never were. So we have to put that all in context. Whereas if I get a coffee chat where I hear directly from someone, or I'm at a public event where I speak to people there, then I'm getting what I feel is better information that really helps me in my decision making. So we've been talking a little bit about, so what doesn't work? What does work, Sean? The money question: what makes a difference? What kind of public input have genuinely changed a council decision you've seen or been part of? Anything come to mind?
When people reach out to me for a coffee, if people give me a call, our phone numbers are out there publicly. And when people write a respectful email, those people are saying to me, if I read between the lines, that they care about the subject, they care to be respectful about the subject. They probably have a good positive influence in their group in the community. And I want to pay attention to what they're saying. And I want to see if I can give them some good feedback on that, or see if I can run with their concern. I would definitely recommend to be respectful, be positive, be as personal as possible, whether it's a coffee or a phone call or an email, and then you'll get the most traction probably. The opposite side of that is to post anonymously that you raged about some topic, and that will get you very little traction because we don't even know who you are.
And there's also some political considerations that may come into play too, where people may be looking to undermine someone electorally as opposed to actually caring about that issue. And so it's something to be mindful of, especially as we get closer, which is we are right now, as we're getting closer to an election. And so people may start speaking up about issues more because they want to make someone look bad, as opposed to their actual true feelings about that issue. So it's something to be mindful about as well. And I'm trying to be mindful myself in terms of how I tackle the issues, to make sure that I'm thinking from the perspective of the long term of the community and not the short term of my political re-election prospects. If we look at the difference between, being heard versus getting your preferred outcome, maybe we talk a little bit about that, because council does want to hear from folks, but that doesn't mean we're going to do exactly what it is that people say we should do. We've already talked a little bit about how we have some more information than other people do. And so there is a role for us to explain to people as well. So it's a two-way conversation. So we're not just taking in information from the public, we're also giving information back to the public so that they understand what it is that we have what the lay of the land is on the decisions that we have to make, because people won't know a lot of the background. So I do try to fill those gaps in for people when they come to me to talk about things, and I can explain to them, well, this is why, there's provincial legislation maybe that means we have to do it this way, and so we're trying to work within the confines of that. And so then people will be like, oh, okay, and now I understand. And that's I think a role as well in terms of the public engagement piece. It's not just the public speaking to us, it's us bringing information back to the public, because we are, as elected representatives, we're the bridge between the machine that is the city, all those operations, and the public. We're that interface. So it is a two-way thing.
Everybody has topics and subjects that they're passionate about, but when you're elected to any order of government, you actually have to represent everybody. And so we will definitely listen to respectful opinions on a subject, but at the same time, we have to represent a wide amount of people. So if you want to really experience what that is like, then you can run. And if you still want to run on that particular topic you're passionate about, then go for it. If and when you're elected, you will have to represent everybody. And so that is the difference between, one specific topic that someone is passionate about and being elected to represent everybody who you're elected to represent.
Often people will think that if the decision doesn't go the way they wanted to, they'll say, oh, the council or the whatever didn't listen to us. They didn't engage enough. They didn't take in the input from the public. While that's entirely possible, we actually have lots of opportunities to hear from the public. So generally speaking, in my experience, if something doesn't go the way a lot of people wanted it to go, it's not because we didn't listen to people. It's because we had to make a different decision, or I made a different decision based on what I think is actually in the best interest of the community. It's not a paternalistic thing. It's a thing about where I may have some more information than the public does, and sometimes have to make the tough decisions. And hopefully you would expect that your representative would make tough decisions that are in the interest of the long-term success of that community, even if it's not necessarily the popular thing to do. And that's where it's important to maintain, as part of this public engagement, rapport and trust with the community, so that hopefully they feel like you actually do listen, and then when you don't necessarily do what they want you to do, they will give you the leeway you need to make the proper choice on all of our behalf.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, where are we, Joel Grenz, on this agenda here? What is next?
Motion to extend the agenda.
A seconding for discussion.
So let's talk about making engagement actually work. If we were to boil it down into what one thing any council could do better when it comes to engaging the public, what comes to mind based on your 3 years of experience now, Sean? How can council do a better job of engaging with the public?
One thing we hear about, Joel Grenz, and the mayor did it a little bit at the beginning of the term, but is to kind of have like a public input period in a meeting. And we've seen it be relatively problematic because, everybody has a certain topic that they're passionate about. And so some councils have said you can approach the microphone during a regular council meeting if it's on a topic that's on the agenda. And hopefully that kind of narrows it down as to what people are going to speak to. Some councils allow for any comments on any topic. And then, say, the town of Qualicum Beach, they allow for a public input at committees of the whole that are on a separate day and time than their regular meeting. In general, and I watch a lot of these, in general, it often seems like it is just a member of the public who want their time on a microphone, but I don't think it weighs any more than us getting a respectful email or phone call or going out for coffee with someone. Yeah, you got your time on the microphone, and that costs staff time and council time and city time and all that stuff. I'm not sure that being on a microphone adds any weight to your comments.
Individuals on the microphone, I've seen that in councils as well. We both watch other council meetings, and you'll get where there's kind of the same person coming meeting after meeting and speaking. And it feels like that microphone becomes more there for that person as opposed to being there for council to hear from people. And that's where it gets to be unproductive to have that kind of engagement, because there's so much cost to the public for every member of the staff to be there, council, it taking everyone's time, and time is money, to have this input in that forum There are plenty of outlets for that. We've gone through a bunch of them here, and those are really, really good ways to get the ear of council that don't involve the costly aspect of having staff having to be in the room at the same time. There are many ways to reach out to council with your thoughts, and we are there to listen to them. And maybe that microphone in the council meeting isn't always the best way.
If you've ever been to an all candidates meeting where they take questions from the public, for example, a well-run one, the person walking around with the microphone will hold the microphone. They will not give the microphone to the person who's going to ask the question. And there's a very good reason for that. Once you hand the microphone over to that person who's going to ask the question, you don't know when you're going to get it back. A well-run run will hold the microphone, and they'll be able to take the microphone away once the question is done.
Sir, would you like to run for this? You could be at the other side of this microphone, maybe, if you have important things you want to say. You could run yourself to be on council.
That was the segue that I was going to go to, Joel Grenz, is that if you really like a microphone, and if you think that's your thing, there are elections very often. You can do a podcast. There are elections very often. To run for council for the city of Parksville, you need 2 signatures. Fill out the form. Run. You will see a microphone very often during the campaign, and if you're elected, you will see a microphone very often during your term. So if you like a microphone, that is the best way to get a lot of mic time.
Get that microphone by running.
Public engagement isn't broken, but it's widely misunderstood, Joel Grenz.
Yeah, it works best when residents understand the system they're engaging with and when governments are honest about what engagement can and cannot do. So hopefully we've shed some light on that a little bit here today.
If there's one thing we hope you take away from this episode, it's that engagement matters. It really does. But effective engagement means showing up with respect, doing your homework, understanding the difference between being heard and getting your way, and recognizing that councillors are people too, as well as MLAs and MPs, people genuinely trying to make good decisions with imperfect information.
And if you've ever engaged with your local council, whether that's by email, at a public hearing, or even just by paying attention, thank you. Democracy only works when people participate, even when it's messy sometimes.
With that, we'll call it a wrap on this episode of Nonpartisan Hacks. We'd love to hear your thoughts on public engagement, whether you're an elected official, a frequent delegation attendee, or someone who's never set foot in a council chamber. Drop us a line at nonpartisanhacks.com.
You can also find us on social media. Just search for Nonpartisan Hacks. And if you're not already subscribed, hey, now's a great time. We're on all the major podcast platforms, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts.
If you found this episode helpful or you think someone else you know would benefit from hearing it, please share it. Word of mouth is how shows like ours grow, and we genuinely appreciate every listener who takes time to spread the word.
So thanks for listening, and until next time,
take care of yourself and your community. That was supposed to be both of us, Joel, at the end.
1, 2, 3.
Take care of yourself
and your community.
Wow, that was okay.